The great meeting hall of the Galactic Conclave was enormous. It stretched farther than the eye could see, its walls made of living crystal that slowly shifted colors with emotion. At this moment, the light burned dark red, angry, alert, hostile. At the very center stood Ambassador Yelena Vasquez of Earth. She looked small compared to the space around her. Her black uniform was plain, without medals or shining metal. Only a small blue symbol of Earth rested over her heart. Her hair was gray, tied neatly back, and her face showed the marks of a long life filled with hard choices. Still, her eyes were steady, calm, unafraid. All around her sat the representatives of more than 1,000 alien civilizations. Some floated in glowing fields. Others were shaped like stone, smoke, or liquid metal. Ancient beings watched her through bodies grown in labs or formed from light itself. Above them all sat the 12 high rulers, species so old they believed fear was beneath them. One of them leaned forward. High Arbiter Kethrin, ruler of the Dominary Empire. His skin was dark red, his eyes molten gold. His voice echoed through the hall, translated into every known language. "You may speak, human. This courtesy is granted, not earned." Yelena did not bow. She simply nodded once. "I am not here to beg," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. "I am here to remind you." A ripple of unease moved through the chamber. 100 years ago, she continued, this conclave decided humanity was dangerous. You sealed our borders. You cut us off from trade, travel, and contact. You told us to stay in our corner of the stars. She paused, letting the silence stretch. And we did. Some delegates laughed. Others clicked, hissed, or glowed in amusement. "For a century," Yelena said, "we obeyed. We stayed inside the lines you drew. We did not strike back when our ships were destroyed. We did not answer when our people were killed and called accidents. We waited." The laughter grew louder. Kethrin stood. "You speak of patience, but we know your kind. We have studied your history." The air filled with images, wars, burning cities, terrified civilians, weapons tearing worlds apart. "This is humanity. Violence follows you like a shadow. You cannot be trusted with the stars." Yelena looked at the images without blinking. "Yes," she said softly, "that was us." The hall quieted. "But you forget something," she added. "Those images are old. We survived them. We learned from them." Kethrin's smile was thin. "Nature does not change so quickly." "Maybe not," Yelena replied, "but choice does." She straightened. "We came asking for cooperation, for peace, for a chance to stand beside you, not beneath you." Kethrin turned to the council. "I move that the human request be denied and that their containment be strengthened." The votes came quickly, every single one against humanity. Yelena closed her eyes for one brief moment. Then she opened them and spoke one last time. "Remember today," she said. "Remember that we came in peace." Kethrin laughed. "Is that a threat?" "No," Yelena replied, her voice steady. "It's a warning." She turned and walked out, and none of them noticed the quiet certainty in her steps. Because this meeting did not prevent a war. It only decided who would be ready when it began. The great doors of the conclave sealed shut behind Ambassador Yelena Vasquez with a deep, echoing sound. It rolled through the hall like a final judgment. Inside, laughter slowly returned. Outside, Yelena stood still for a moment, breathing in the quiet corridor of the station. Only then did she allow her shoulders to sink slightly. Not from defeat, but from certainty. She had known how this would end. Her diplomatic shuttle waited nearby,
small and plain compared to the massive alien warships docked around it. As she approached, a young man hurried toward her. Thomas Chen, her aide, too young to hide his anger well. "They never planned to listen," he said tightly. "Not even for a moment." Yelena nodded. "No, they didn't." "Then why did we come?" he demanded. "Why walk into that hall if the answer was already decided?" She stopped and looked at him, really looked at him. His fists were clenched, his eyes burned with questions that went deeper than politics. "Because," she said gently, "history matters, and so does proof." "Proof of what?" "That we tried everything else." They boarded the shuttle, the hatch sealed, the engines hummed to life. As the ship pulled away from the station, Thomas stared out the viewport. Normally, this area was crowded with patrol ships, alien vessels watching human space like prison guards. Now, it was empty. "Where are the patrols?" he asked. Yelena's lips curved into the smallest smile. "They were reassigned." Thomas frowned. "Reassigned where?" She did not answer immediately. Instead, she turned to the stars. "Thomas," she said quietly, "what do you think the galaxy believes about us?" He hesitated. "That we're violent, unstable, a threat?" "Yes," she said. "They believe humanity is dangerous because we act fast, fight hard, and remember pain." She finally looked at him. "But that's not why we're dangerous." He swallowed. "Then why?" "Because we wait. Because when we are cornered, we plan." The shuttle crossed the invisible line into human space. Thomas expected alarms, orders, defense fleets. Instead, there was only silence. A deep, controlled silence. "Ambassador," he whispered, "what aren't you telling me?" Yelena placed a hand on the console, steadying herself. "For 100 years, they thought they were containing us." She turned toward him fully now. "They believed we were trapped." Thomas felt a chill crawl up his spine. "We weren't," she continued. "We were hidden." "Hidden where?" he asked. "Everywhere they weren't looking," she said softly. The shuttle continued forward, deeper into human territory, far from alien sensors, far from curious eyes. Behind them, beyond the border, something shifted in the dark between stars, massive, silent, patient, waiting for permission. Yelena closed her eyes, and for just a moment, an image rose in her mind. A younger face, a military uniform, a smile that had never grown old. Her daughter, gone because an alien patrol had called it a mistake. Mistakes that happened again and again and again. Humanity had learned something important during the long isolation. Anger burns fast, but patience builds forever. She opened her eyes. "Take us home," she said. The shuttle vanished into the stars, and behind it, the countdown began. The galaxy believed humanity was still locked behind walls. They never asked what had been built behind them.
Captain Threxel had waited 30 years for this moment. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the quiet stretch of space that marked the human border. For decades, it had been the most boring post in the Dominary fleet. Humans never crossed the line. They never challenged patrols. They obeyed. Weak species always did. Now, everything had changed. The new orders glowed on his command display. Shoot on sight. No warnings, no exceptions. Threxel felt satisfaction ripple through his 3 hearts. "At last," he muttered. Around him, his fleet held formation. 300 Dominary warships, each one powerful enough to burn a planet. Their weapons were charged, their shields flawless, their crews eager.
If the humans test us, Threxel said loudly, they will learn why the Dominary have ruled the stars for 50,000 years. His officers clicked their approval. Then a voice broke the moment. Captain, said the sensor officer, uncertainty heavy in his tone, we are detecting a disturbance. Threxel turned sharply. Explain. A gravitational anomaly. It appears, then vanishes. No stable location. Natural? Threxel asked. The officer hesitated. Possibly, but it doesn't match any known pattern. Threxel narrowed his eyes. Space was full of strange things, ghost readings, echoes, nothing worth concern. Continue monitoring, report changes. Minutes passed, then hours. The anomaly returned, closer now, then farther away, always just beyond clear detection, like something circling them, watching. Threxel felt a flicker of unease, but crushed it immediately. The Dominary did not fear shadows. Then every console lit up at once. A transmission cut through all channels simultaneously. A calm human voice spoke in perfect Dominary language. This is United Nations Warship Prometheus. You are ordered to withdraw from this sector. You have 1 standard hour. Silence filled the bridge. Then laughter erupted. 1 ship? Threxel said, disbelief thick in his voice. 1 human ship gives orders to my fleet? He stepped forward and opened a channel. Human vessel, he said coldly, you are trespassing. Reveal yourself and surrender within 1 minute. The reply came without delay. Captain Threxel, we are aware of your new orders. We are not here to surrender. We are here to offer survival. Threxel slammed his fist against the console. Find them, he snapped. I want that ship on my screen. The sensor officer's hands flew over controls. I can't. There is nothing there. Impossible, Threxel growled. We are receiving their signal, the officer insisted, but sensors show empty space. The human voice returned. You are running out of time. Threxel bared his teeth. Enough games, he snarled. Show yourself. There was a pause. Then the human voice spoke once more. Very well, Captain. Space itself seemed to tear. Reality peeled back, and something impossibly vast began to appear. The Dominary believed they were hunters. They had not yet realized they were already being aimed at. The human ship finished decloaking. Captain Threxel forgot how to breathe. The vessel was not just large, it was wrong. 10 kilometers of black metal hung in space, swallowing light instead of reflecting it. Its shape was sharp and deliberate, like a blade made to cut reality itself. Weapons covered its surface in patterns Threxel did not recognize, each one silent, patient, waiting. At the front of the ship, a single massive structure glowed softly. A cannon, one built for something far larger than warships. The bridge of the Dominary flagship fell silent. Captain, the sensor officer whispered, that ship's energy output is higher than our entire fleet combined. Threxel's throat went dry. That technology is impossible, he said. Humans cannot build this. But the evidence hung before him, undeniable. The human voice returned, calm and almost sad. Captain Threxel, I am Admiral Li Chen of United Nations Space Command. You now see us. Withdraw your fleet. This is your final chance. Threxel felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. But fear was weakness, and Dominary did not retreat. You expect me to run from 1 ship? He snarled. Admiral Chen's voice softened. I expect you to live. Threxel turned to his officers. All ships, he ordered, forcing strength into his voice. Target the human vessel. Prepare to fire. Some hesitated. Captain, his first officer said quietly, perhaps we should— I gave an order, Threxel roared. Reluctantly, the fleet complied. 300 warships locked weapons on the Prometheus, missiles armed, energy cannons charged, targeting systems confirmed. The human ship did not move. Admiral, Threxel broadcast, surrender now or be destroyed. A pause. I am sorry, Admiral Chen said. Threxel raised his hand. Fire. The galaxy screamed. Missiles flooded space by the thousands. Beams of energy tore through darkness. Explosions bloomed like artificial stars. Nuclear weapons detonated in perfect formation, enough firepower to erase a world. The barrage ended. Smoke, light, and debris faded. The Prometheus remained, untouched, not a scratch, not a flicker. The bridge went silent again. That's not possible, the sensor officer stammered. Our weapons didn't register. It's like we fired at nothing. The Prometheus began to turn, slowly, deliberately. The massive cannon at its bow brightened, energy twisting the space around it. Admiral Chen spoke once more. That was your choice. The Prometheus fired. There was no explosion, no debris. Threxel's flagship simply vanished. One moment it existed, the next it did not. The beam continued, slicing through 6 more Dominary warships like ghosts. Ships erased, crews gone, history removed. The surviving vessels broke formation in panic. Threxel never felt the end. His final thought was simple. They were wrong. The battle lasted 4 minutes. 287 Dominary warships were gone. The Prometheus stood alone, untouched. Admiral Chen watched the survivors flee. Do not pursue, she ordered quietly. Let them tell the story. The human ship remained still, and across the galaxy, fear found a new meaning. The galaxy had just learned a terrible truth. Humanity had never been weak, only silent.
The distress signals spread faster than panic. Within hours, every major civilization received the recordings. Shaking footage, broken transmissions, screams cut short, images of Dominary warships vanishing as if erased by an unseen hand. One human ship, 300 destroyed. On thousands of worlds, leaders stopped what they were doing and watched in silence. They saw Dominary weapons crash uselessly against invisible shields. They saw space bend when the Prometheus fired. They watched an empire's pride turn into terror. And for the first time in a century, the galaxy asked the same question. How? Emergency sessions were called. Fleets were recalled. Old rivals spoke again, not as enemies, but as frightened neighbors. In the great hall of the conclave, the living crystals no longer glowed red. They had gone dark. Representatives crowded the chamber, shouting, accusing, demanding answers. You said the humans were contained. This technology is impossible. Someone must have helped them. High Arbiter Kethrin stood at the center, his expression carved from stone. His greatest fleet was gone, his best captain erased. We do not know how they did it, he admitted coldly, but they are still only one species. With how many ships? Someone shouted back. How many monsters like that one? Kethrin had no answer. Then the hall fell silent. A transmission request appeared on every console. Source, human space. Broadcast, all frequencies. Kethrin hesitated. Put it through. The air shimmered. Ambassador Yelena Vasquez appeared. Older now, tired, but steady. Greetings, Conclave, she said calmly. I hope you remember me.
No one laughed this time. "I warned you," she continued. "I asked you to remember the day you rejected us, and now you do." Images appeared behind her, human shipyards hidden among stars, massive vessels under construction, rows upon rows of weapons the galaxy had never imagined. "This is what we built while you watched us and believed nothing was happening," Yelena said, "while you congratulated yourselves on keeping us weak." Her gaze hardened. "We did not want war. We wanted peace. You chose fear instead." Catherine stepped forward. "What do you want, human?" Yelena did not hesitate. "What we asked for 100 years ago. Recognition, freedom of travel, trade, equality." "And if we refuse," Catherine demanded. Her expression did not change. "Then you will learn what patience becomes when it ends." She paused. "You have 3 days." The transmission ended. The hall exploded into chaos. "Surrender! Never! Prepare every fleet!" The conclave cracked under the weight of fear. Some species left immediately, choosing survival over pride. Others stayed, clinging to the past. Catherine watched them go, his confidence shaking, for 50,000 years. For the first time, the galaxy understood. The humans had not awakened in anger. They had awakened ready. 3 days had been given, and every second of them felt like the last.
The 3 days felt like a lifetime. Across the galaxy, worlds argued, voted, and panicked. Fleets moved, borders closed, old alliances shattered overnight. In the Great Hall, the conclave was no longer united. Some species packed their delegations and left in silence. Others argued until their voices failed. Fear stripped away tradition and exposed raw survival. The Silene ambassador stepped forward, his liquid metal form smooth and still. "We have analyzed the battle," he said calmly. "Every projection ends the same way. Resistance is pointless." A shockwave of anger rippled through the hall. "You would abandon us?" High Arbiter Catherine demanded. "We would live," the Silene replied. "You may keep your pride." One by one, other delegations followed. Traders, scholars, smaller species who had always feared becoming collateral damage. The conclave fractured. Catherine stood among those who remained, the Dominary, the Orax hegemony, and a handful of proud warrior cultures. "Let the cowards run," Catherine snarled. "We will fight." But deep inside, doubt took root. On the final day, Ambassador Yelena Vasquez returned. The great hall felt hollow now. Empty seats stared back like ghosts. "You have chosen," Yelena said softly. "We do not bow," Catherine replied. Yelena nodded. "Then you have chosen extinction." She turned and walked away. The war began within the hour. Human fleets emerged from hidden space, hundreds then thousands, ships larger than cities, weapons that bent reality, shields that ignored physics. The Dominary fought bravely. They lost anyway. Defensive lines fell in days, fleets vanished in minutes, worlds surrendered rather than burn. And the humans did something unexpected. They offered mercy. Cities were spared, civilians protected, surrendered soldiers treated with dignity. This confused the galaxy more than the weapons ever had. High Arbiter Catherine watched his empire crumble, not in flames, but in quiet defeat. The final stand came above Dominary Prime. 40,000 warships formed a shield around their homeworld. The human fleet arrived at dawn. The Prometheus was there, but it was no longer the largest ship. Behind it came giants, moon-sized constructs, humming with power older than fear. Catherine closed his eyes. The voice of Admiral Chen echoed across space. "This ends now."
She offered surrender. Kethrin looked at his officers, at the lives waiting below, and for the first time, pride lost. "I surrender," he said. The war ended without a final shot. The galaxy expected destruction. What it received instead was judgment.
The silence after surrender was heavier than any battle. 40,000 Dominari warships powered down together. Weapons dimmed. Shields fell. One of the oldest empires in the galaxy went quiet in a single moment. High Arbiter Kethrin stood alone on the bridge of his flagship. Around him, officers waited, some relieved, some ashamed, some quietly crying. None of them spoke. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen. "Your surrender is accepted," she said. "Your people will be spared." Kethrin bowed his head slightly. "Then it is done." Human ships moved forward, not as executioners, but as guards. Boarding teams arrived with calm precision. No shouting, no cruelty, just orders carried out cleanly. Kethrin removed the symbol of his rank and placed it on the command console. "For 50,000 years," he said quietly, "this emblem meant power." He looked at it one last time. Today, it means nothing. He surrendered himself to human custody. Across Dominari space, the same scene repeated. Leaders detained, fleets disarmed, worlds secured without fire or bloodshed. The galaxy watched in disbelief. This was not conquest as they understood it. This was accountability. Trials began within weeks. Evidence was presented. Orders were reviewed. Decisions examined. Some leaders claimed they were only following tradition. Others blamed fear. Many said they believed they were protecting the galaxy. Human judges listened. Then they ruled. Those responsible for mass deaths during the containment era were imprisoned, some for life, some for less. Those proven innocent were released. There were no public executions, no revenge. That unsettled the galaxy more than punishment ever could. Years passed. The old conclave was gone. In its place rose something new, a coalition built on shared voice, not hierarchy. Membership was open, rules were clear. No species ruled another. Humanity did not stand above it, they stood within it. The Dominari people rebuilt. Their empire was gone, but their culture survived. Their children grew up learning a different version of history, one that included responsibility. 10 years after the war, Ambassador Yelena Vasquez returned to Dominari Prime. She walked slowly through the capital city, now filled with open markets and mixed species. Old monuments of conquest had been replaced by gardens and memorials. She stopped at a long black wall. Names covered it. Human, Dominari, Selene, Orax, all together. A young Dominari approached her, his golden eyes curious, not hostile. "You're the human from the recordings," he said. "I was," Yelena replied with a gentle smile. "Your teachers say you warned us." "I tried." He looked at the wall. "Why didn't you destroy us?" Yelena considered the question. "Because becoming what we were feared to be would have meant losing ourselves." She touched the stone. "We chose something harder." The young Dominari nodded slowly. "Do you think we can be friends someday?" Yelena smiled. Warmth finally reached her eyes. "Yes," she said. "I think we can." She turned and walked away. Behind her, the galaxy continued to change. The war was over, but the story of what humanity chose to become had only just begun.
The galaxy did not heal quickly. Fear leaves marks that weapons never do. Even 10 years after the war, many worlds still remember the moment the sky had changed, the moment they learned the humans were no longer small, no longer silent. But something unexpected followed that fear. Stability. Trade routes reopened under shared protection, borders softened. Old rivals sat at the same tables, not because they trusted one another, but because humanity had proven something new was possible. Power did not have to mean domination. It could mean restraint. Human fleets still existed, massive, silent, unquestioned. But they did not patrol like jailers. They watched like guardians. Admiral Li Qin retired quietly. She refused monuments, refused titles. When asked why, she answered simply, because this was never about glory. She kept one photograph in her home, a young man smiling in a uniform too large for him, her son, lost long before the war ever began. Humanity remembered its dead, not with rage, with resolve. On Earth, children learned about the isolation century, about the long silence, about the choice their ancestors had faced, burn the galaxy or change it, and why they chose the harder path. Ambassador Yelena Vasquez did not live to see all of it. She passed peacefully, surrounded by stars she had once only dreamed of reaching freely. At her memorial, no single species stood alone. Thousands gathered. Some had once voted for humanity's extinction. Now they spoke her name with respect. A single line was engraved beneath her image. She warned us. We listened too late. Years later, a joint exploration ship launched from a neutral world. Its crew was mixed. Human engineers, Dominary pilots, Selene navigators. They laughed together, argued, shared food. None of them remembered the war clearly. That was the point. The galaxy expanded, not through conquest, but cooperation. Old ruins were explored together, knowledge shared freely. And far beyond known space, humanity still listened, still watched, still prepared. Because patience had not disappeared. It had matured. The galaxy had once chosen extinction for humanity. Humanity had answered with memory, with discipline, with choice. And in doing so, they reshaped the future, not by fear, but by example. The galaxy believed the story had ended with victory, but every choice humanity made after the war would decide if it truly deserved it. Peace has a strange side effect. It makes people comfortable. 20 years after the war, the galaxy felt safer than it ever had. Trade flourished, borders blurred, old enemies became partners. New generations grew up without fear of sudden destruction from the stars. And slowly, the mistakes renamed. Words like containment became security measures. Deaths became unfortunate outcomes. Humans noticed. They did not protest loudly. They simply recorded everything. On Earth, deep archives remained sealed to the public. Raw footage, unedited logs, last messages from ships destroyed long before the war. Humanity understood something others did not. Peace survives only when truth remains uncomfortable. At the Coalition Council, debates grew sharper. Some members argued the human fleets were no longer necessary, that the weapons built during isolation were symbols of fear. A Dominary representative stood during one such session. "We owe humanity our survival," she said, "but we must also move forward. Eternal vigilance suggests eternal distrust." The chamber murmured in agreement. The human delegate did not argue. He only asked one question. "If we disarm," he said calmly, "who decides when fear returns?" No one answered. Beyond official politics, something else stirred. At the edge of known space, long-range sensors detected anomalies, ancient signals, artificial in nature, older than any current civilization. The same signature appeared in 3 distant sectors. Human science teams recognized it immediately. Precursor technology. The same source humanity had once discovered alone. Except this time, they were not the first to find it. A classified meeting was held on Luna. Admirals, scientists, coalition observers. "This changes everything," one analyst said. "If another species gains access—" "They won't use it like we did," Admiral Chen said quietly. Though retired, her voice still carried weight. "They won't wait. They won't restrain themselves." A younger officer asked the question no one wanted to voice. "Do we intervene?" Silence filled the room. Humanity had promised never to become what the galaxy once feared, but promises did not erase responsibility. "We don't conquer," Chen said, "but we also don't look away." A decision was made, quietly. Human fleets moved, not to threaten, but to observe, to contain knowledge, not species, to guide if possible, to stop if necessary. Far from the core worlds, a small alien research team activated an ancient structure they did not understand. Something answered, something old, something that remembered how the galaxy once nearly ended itself, and humanity was already on its way. Peace had survived because humanity remembered the past. The question now was whether the galaxy would survive remembering it too.
The ancient structure floated above a dead world. It was massive, broken, and clearly not meant to be touched. But the alien research team had touched it anyway. Energy surged across the ruins like veins lighting up beneath stone. Space bent, sensors screamed. A signal pulsed outward, old, powerful, and awake. Human ships arrived minutes later. They did not attack. They did not threaten. They simply appeared. The lead vessel transmitted calmly. "This site is now under human protection. Power down and step away." The alien researchers panicked. "You don't own this," one shouted. "You can't just take it." The human reply was steady. "We don't want it, and that's why we're here." Coalition observers watched the encounter live. Many expected force. They expected fear. Instead, they saw patience. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists, carefully shutting the structure down, sharing explanations, teaching, not commanding. It took days. When it was done, the structure fell silent once more. No worlds burned. No fleets clashed. The galaxy exhaled. Later, during a closed coalition session, the question was finally asked aloud. "Why didn't you claim it?" a delegate demanded. "With that technology, you could secure peace forever." The human representative answered simply, "Peace enforced by fear is just a quieter war." Humanity sealed the site, cataloged the data, restricted access. Not even humans were allowed to use it freely. This decision confused many, angered some. But slowly, trust grew. Because humanity had proven something rare, they could stop. Years passed. The coalition expanded. Conflicts were resolved through pressure, not annihilation. Human fleets intervened only when extinction loomed, not when profit tempted. And yet, in the quiet corners of the galaxy, resentment brewed. Not everyone had forgotten the old order. Some whispered that humanity now ruled without crowns, that restraint was just another kind of control. In hidden systems, ships gathered, old weapons were rebuilt, new alliances formed in shadows. Human intelligence noticed. They said nothing, prepared everything. Because humanity had learned a final lesson during the isolation century. The greatest danger was never hatred, it was denial. And denial was spreading again. Fear does not disappear. It changes shape. 30 years after the war, the galaxy was more connected than ever before. Trade flowed freely, mixed species cities thrived. Children grew up speaking multiple languages, never knowing a time when the stars were closed. Yet, beneath that progress, fear lingered. Not of war, of humanity. "They say they don't rule us," some whispered, "but everything stays peaceful because they allow it. They decide when to intervene. They decide what knowledge is too dangerous." A quiet movement formed among several fringe systems, worlds that felt overshadowed by human presence, even when no human ships were nearby. They called themselves the Free Stars. Their message was simple. No species should hold that much power. Human intelligence agencies monitored them carefully. Their leaders were not violent, not yet, but they were gathering ships, studying old weapons,
searching ruins humanity had already marked as forbidden. At a coalition council session, the tension finally broke. A Free Stars representative stood and pointed directly at the human delegates. "You once suffered under containment," she said. "Now you contain knowledge, movement, and power. How are you different?" The chamber held its breath. The human delegate did not raise his voice. "We remember what containment feels like," he said. "That is why we do not use it lightly." "But you still use it," she pressed. "Yes," he replied, "when extinction is the alternative." The debate went unresolved. That night, Admiral Li Chen, older now, slower, but still sharp, stood on a balcony overlooking Earth. "They are afraid of becoming irrelevant," she said to the young officer beside her. "No," he replied after a pause. "They are afraid of trusting us." Chen nodded. And fear always looks for excuses. Days later, alarms rang across multiple sectors. A Free Stars fleet had activated precursor weaponry they did not fully understand, not to attack humanity, but to prove they could stand equal. The energy surge destabilized local space. Stars trembled, entire systems were threatened. Human fleets mobilized immediately, not with weapons primed, with evacuation plans, rescue ships, stabilization arrays. Coalition channels filled with confusion. Why aren't they striking? Why are they helping? At the center of the crisis, humanity made a choice. Again. They would save those who feared them, even if it proved nothing, even if it earned no thanks, because power meant nothing without restraint, and restraint meant everything. The galaxy was about to learn one final lesson, not about human strength, but about human mercy.
The Free Stars crisis lasted 12 hours. 12 hours where entire systems stood on the edge of destruction. Stars flicker under unstable forces, worlds evacuated in panic. Civilizations prayed to gods they barely remembered. And through it all, human ships worked without pause. They stabilized reactors they did not create, pulled civilians from collapsing habitats, held broken space together long enough for millions to escape. Not one human weapon fired. By the time the precursor device finally went silent, 3 human ships were lost, burned out stabilizing the surge. Their crews did not survive. The galaxy watched, in stunned silence. The Free Stars fleet powered down, their leaders surrendered, not in defeat, but in shame. At the emergency coalition assembly, the hall was filled once more. Not with shouting, with quiet. A representative of the Free Stars stepped forward, voice trembling. "We feared you," she said. "We believed your restraint was control, that your mercy was strategy." She looked directly at the human delegation. "We were wrong." The human delegate stood. "You were afraid," he said simply. "So were we once." No punishment followed. No conquest. The Free Stars were disarmed, not destroyed. Their worlds rebuilt with shared effort. Their people allowed to remain free. Some never forgave humanity. Many did. Years passed. Then decades. The galaxy grew, not faster, but wiser. Human fleets became fewer, smaller. Not because they were forced to shrink, but because they were no longer needed everywhere. History books no longer spoke of humanity as monsters, nor as saviors, but as a species that had stood at the edge and stepped back. On a quiet world near the galactic core, a memorial stood. Simple, stone and light. It bore no weapons, only words. They were given power. They chose restraint. They were feared. They chose mercy. A young child, half human, half dominary, stood before it and asked her parent, "Why didn't they rule the galaxy?" Her parent smiled. Because ruling wasn't the point. Far above, the stars burned on. Not in fear, not in silence, but in shared light. The galaxy had once chosen extinction for humanity. Humanity had answered with patience, then with strength, and finally, with wisdom. The end. May this message strengthen your faith and renew your hope. Thank you for staying until the end. If this touched your heart, like, share,
and subscribe to Astro Realms for more uplifting content. May God's blessings overflow in your life. See you soon.